Greetings YouTube, and welcome to a video that I am thankful I get to make because I promised a couple weeks back when Kabam promised us as a community that they would be more transparent going forward, and so every one of you should have received a inbox message, which kudos to Kabam for putting it in the inbox and then directing from the inbox to the forums. That's the part that makes way more sense than when they did that emergency maintenance that they announced, kind of, but it was buried in the forums. And so if you're like myself and you never made it to the forums or even the Line app in that time, you just didn't know that at 10 o'clock Central Standard Time that night, the game was going to go down. And so the game understands that mistake, and they're trying to be more transparent by starting with an in-game inbox message that gives you a direct link to the forums, thus being more transparent. And as long as you check your in-game mail, you will not miss it. So good job, Kabam, for improving on that account. Now this message specifically is about the developer thoughts on the dungeons as they have come back, and we will now see them improved from the first time, even though I know a lot of people still loved them. I personally did not play them that much because I didn't have the time, but I still appreciated their purpose and certainly understood why so many people enjoyed them. Okay, so let's read the message together and then I'll give you my thoughts. Hey Summoners, with the return of the Infinity Dungeons on the horizon, we thought that this was the perfect opportunity for us to take another step towards being more transparent with you all. Yay, that's the promise. And give you some insight into the design intent of our original Dungeons release, what we think went right, what we think we needed to improve on, and the lessons we learned that we're applying going forward, and there's an exclamation mark at the end of that. We hope that we can continue to offer you all more peeks behind the curtain in the future and share more of our intentions and priorities as we move forward with the contest. Both are fantastic goals. The idea that sparked Dungeons since almost the beginning of the contest, there have been many different social aspects to the game, but most of them revolved around alliances. While alliances are a great place to forge relationships with other summoners, they also had some limiting factors when it came to playing alongside friends of a different progression level, or just because there may not be enough room in your alliance. We wanted to expand on the social offerings in-game and offer summoners a mode where they can play alongside existing friends, whether you're in the same alliance or not, as well as to meet some potentially new friends and expand your personal network of summoners. Random tangent, and a couple people tell me they tried to use dungeons as a way to get a date. That certainly was a gamble with RNG-like qualities. We didn't want this to be a mode that required the same level of commitment that alliances do, but something that could be done more casually with your friends to work towards some nice rewards, and they were nice. At the same time, we gravitated towards the idea of making this mode highly interactive and collaborative between players. We wanted to reinforce this idea that players were playing with other real people, and so it was important for us to try to showcase that. One of the keys for us here was to have players who were online and active at the same time, communicating and working toward a common goal. Since the mode was intended to be more casual, we didn't want the rewards to detract from Alliance Wars or quests, or to be too similar. Those modes are designed to be the focus of veteran players, so we didn't want those players to feel that they had to fully complete content in Dungeons on top of the commitments they already had to those modes. The question for us then became, what would be a unique and valuable reward for all kinds of players that weren't meant to substantially increase the power at the top end of your roster? We know that many of you have those specific champs that you're hoping to get with every crystal you open. Blade, whether they be your favorite characters or the ones that have something in their kit that your roster is lacking, we decided this could be a way to give players the ability to earn crystals that better targeted these particular champions. This was one way that we could help players to expand the utility and power of their roster without becoming redundant with our other alliance modes. Specific champions could provide additional utility for players at the champion rarity that players currently had. What we tried the first time. Buffs and encounters. We wanted to create clear identities for each dungeon's theme beyond simply the classes of champions you encounter. We did this by tailoring the available buffs to each pair of classes. We wanted to keep the buffs general enough so that any character can benefit from them, but specific enough so that certain champions can benefit more than others. We wanted to create and use buffs that, when considered in tandem with the encounter, would require some degree of knowledge about the RNG mechanics of different characters. This degree of knowledge should increase at higher difficulty levels. Even though the enemies and buffs are random, keep in mind this is white text now, they were created to facilitate scenarios like Kingpin showing up with Slumber, in which case knowing the general kit of Kingpin would help you make informed decision. We wanted to create a sense of power equality between buffs so that players would check in with their partner to see which node to take down. It became clear early on that creating buffs that were too powerful or too specific would create situations where there was no communication necessary to decide which buffs to take down because the choice was too obvious. We aim to place more challenging enemies as visible bosses to limit the sense of gotcha when encountering a hidden enemy with challenging mechanics. We've made some adjustments in this new version to further accomplish this, like moving all evade champions to visible encounters, for example. That's a great addition to the current dungeon setup. Creating empathy. I feel like that should be a goal in every single aspect of the game, not just dungeons for sure. A main element of cooperation for us was creating empathy between partners. We set out to accomplish this in a few ways. This also sounds like setting up a date, by the way. First and foremost, the design of the map is intended to create empathy. The ultimate problem to solve in each room is which node do I want removed, but by separating the solution to that problem into two parts, the decision and the action, then requiring your partner to accomplish one of them, we sought to create a situation where empathy is beneficial for both. I actually don't think that's the definition of empathy at all, but let's move on. Hiding the vanilla fights was important to creating empathy because it leaves no or very little room to make a selfish decision. The only known variable in deciding which path to take was which buff the other partner wanted removed. The cost of losing the fight is another way we tried to add to this. If you fail at your fight, it's not just on you this time. It means that your partner's next encounter is going to be much more difficult, hence ending a friendship. You want to do well so that your partner can do well. Deciding on prize brackets. Since our goal was to have this be a mode where players would expand their roster rather than strictly improve it, we had originally wanted to limit the availability of rewards to conditions based on roster size by rarity. In other words, you could earn 4 stars if you already had X number of 4 stars and earn 5 stars if you had X number of 5 stars. Unfortunately, it was not something that was possible for us to complete at that time, and we had to rely on prestige brackets, which were our backup. That's really interesting, actually. At this time, we're still going to be using prestige to bracket milestones and rewards, but are still working on an alternate solution, such as the one we mentioned above. Man, this is a lengthy post. What we saw that we didn't like. Players were spending more time to achieve their milestones than we had hoped or intended, no doubt. Dungeon parties formed through matchmaking had a lower success rate on average compared to dungeons formed with friends or alliance members. That's because you know each other, people. Many early game players did not attempt the mode during its availability. Based on prestige, meant that we were looking at everyone's highest 5 champs, which meant that after 1 or 2 dungeon runs, players would have those champs on cooldown and could have their drastically lower PI champs that could not complete the content we had targeted for them. That is a very good point. I can see a lot of people struggling with worse players or having to use items to refresh the ones that are on the cooldown mode. Too much pressure with Infinity Dust as a reward. We put Infinity Dust in the Dungeons Rewards because we knew that players would be collecting it. I can't agree with that. I'm sorry, I'm going to stop reading this. Infinity Dust is something that you got to benefit depending on how much you grinded. It was a very obvious way to reward people who did a lot and not reward people who didn't. And when you had something like a 5-star Awakening Gem as a reward, you want to reward people. So this created the unintended pressure among many players that they had to do every milestone in every dungeon every day to earn enough dust to buy a 5-star Awakening Gem Crystal. As I just said, Dark Artifacts as a limited time temporary currency added a large amount of undesired pressure on players. I mean, again, if you don't have time to play it, just don't play it. It's as simple as that. Artifacts are now a permanent currency, so you don't have to feel like you need to get enough before it's gone. Getting all the milestones every day will get you rewards faster, but you can still slowly accumulate artifacts over multiple dungeon events and eventually reach your goal. Lowering effort required. We didn't want players playing dungeons for hours at a time, which is something they should also, again, think about with arenas, because people don't grind arenas because they don't have hours at a time to play them. So we lowered the effort required to reach the top milestone. We did also lower the rewards per milestone to maintain balance as well. Overlapping the dungeon event with the second 2 weeks of the event quest. A lot of players like to get the event quest finished right away, as I do as well, so they don't have to worry about rushing at the end of the month by holding off on dungeons events for the first 2 weeks. We're trying to give players that chance to finish the event quest without also worrying about dungeons right away. Okay, so over the next 3 months, you'll see Infinity Dungeon returns 3 times. Okay, that's big. So we're going to see it 3 months, 3 times, 2 weeks at a time. And we're just going to scroll down because it says, please note that we are sharing a non-finalized version of our plans with you for future iterations of dungeons. That means that these plans may change and evolve based on the results and feedback we gather from the previous incarnations of dungeons. Keep an eye out for more information as we get closer to these dates. Okay, so quick thoughts. First of all, we love transparency, and Kabam, kudos to you for staying true to your word and giving us a message that, quite frankly, you haven't done before when content is returning to the game. You're giving us dates, you're giving us the idea of difficulty. We don't have rewards yet, which is a bit of a bummer, but hopefully we will see those very soon. What I really want dungeons to be is something that's fun, and I'm sure Kabam wants that as well. This should be something that, assuming you're not trying to find a date, you're just going to wreck some content, and hopefully it's not going to be super crazy challenging, and then the rewards are going to be a breeze. It's kind of like what I guess the people that are stupid enough to complain about the difficulty of Gwenpool at the movies want out of an event. You have something that you can wreck content, but it's still somewhat challenging at the beginning, and then if you want to exit and get your rewards, great, but if you want to keep challenging yourself to make the PI higher and higher and higher, you can do that as well, and it is your choice and your buddy's choice that's in the dungeon with you. I just applied Kabam. I know that sometimes it feels like my channel is overly negative, but really I'm just trying to be honest about what I see right and wrong with the posts being made. In this case, there's really nothing to criticize. It's something that's needed for transparency's sake, and I hope that this is a welcome pattern for Kabam going forward, because the more we know behind the scenes as players, the more we will hopefully gain back trust that has been lost for a company that really has done a lot of justified things to not earn our trust in the past several months. I also hope this means that Summoner Appreciation Month is definitely happening in September. That is something that's also going to be designed to help gain back the lost trust for summoners that haven't already quit the game. So, those are my thoughts on this. Thanks for watching the video. Comment below and let me know your thoughts. Are you excited about dungeons? Were you like me and didn't do them much, but maybe on Dungeon Day, the first round, and are going to try it more? Personally, I'm going back to teaching in a couple of days, so I'm going to have even less time, but I'll probably give it a go every once in a while just to see what's up. But otherwise, thanks for watching this video again. Have a great day, and good luck with all content, including trying to go for Heimdall. If that is you, I should have another video on whether or not you should go for him up in the next 12 hours or so.